Shadows. We all have shadows. You have a shadow. I have a shadow. At least I hope you have a shadow. If not, let me know down below, because if you don't have a shadow, do you even exist? I want to talk about shadows because I read Solo Leveling up until like the first 2 books, all the way up to chapter 180. I might read the 3rd book, not quite sure yet. And then I also watched an anime when I first moved out of once I first moved out of my mom's basement and got my own place. I binged watched this anime called Summertime Render, which was also about shadows. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. I mean, I've been understanding like shadows, I guess, from like Carl Jung and from a psychological perspective, and understanding that we need to integrate like the dark sides of our shadow to be able to become like who we are. And I've started to, well, at least I grasped this more fully after watching or reading Solo Leveling, because there's this whole story, which if you haven't watched or read Solo Leveling, this video isn't for you, but if you have at least understood that Jin Wu is able to obtain shadows in his time, then you should be good. I'm not going to really give any big spoilers, even though there isn't really big spoilers to be had from Solo Leveling that I can really think of. But just in case, I just want to give you a fair warning where there may or may not be a spoiler. I don't know, because I don't know exactly all I'm going to be talking about, because I just kind of like am riffing off these ideas off the top of my head as I would be talking with a friend, which you're a friend to me. So this is just how I'd be having a conversation with a friend that maybe has read Solo Leveling or has some background with Solo Leveling. Now with that out of the way, and I know that just took 45 seconds for me to say, but doesn't help with my analytics, but does help me with the relationship building aspect that I have with each and every single one of you that watches my videos. So with the shadows, I always thought that shadows were kind of like something that we just had to integrate into ourselves to help us become stronger, which that still is the case. Like, you do need to integrate your shadows to help you become stronger. I just had never really looked at it from the perspective of Solo Leveling, where Jin Wu uses the shadows and the enemies that he defeats, which this can kind of be seen as like you have your own enemies within your own life, along with other enemies outside of you, but they aren't really outside of you, but like you're fighting them on the outside, but then they are still internalized within you as your own individual self, and they can become shadows or past remnants of like your past experiences. And if you don't ever defeat them, they're just going to be bogging down your CPU, your memory, your ability to comprehend and come up with new ideas. Whereas if you say integrate your shadows and use them as a part of you, then you're golden. Because there's a couple of parts in Solo Leveling where like people are able to recognize that Jin Wu's carrying around a whole army within his shadows. Like, he has hundreds of thousands of soldiers within his own shadow, which this is also applicable to like you and I, because we have our own shadows within us as well too. And I might have said a couple of these things in the yesterday video or the video that was released a couple days ago, but I felt like it was worthwhile to go in depth a little bit more on this topic. No idea if that video is even going to be doing well or not, but that's kind of besides the point. I just found it interesting how it's like he was able to use his shadow army to defeat enemies that stood within his way. It's the same thing for us, where like we're able to defeat like the enemies that stand within our way. And there's a part from the book, like I took a couple of notes that I was saying the other day, but there's a part at the end of chapter 179 that I wanted to read to you really quick. Like after Jin Wu and everything goes down, it was more of an author's note, which I resonated with it quite a bit around what he was saying. So it was, thank you so much for showing my webtoon so much love despite all its flaws, which I feel like my videos have flaws as well too. But I kind of took that as like, yeah, regardless of if we have flaws or not, like it's still good to at least create something, even if it isn't going to be perfect in the eyes of like us, but like other people. Maybe you see this as perfection and I'm just like, this is just, you know, it's not, like I like it, but like there's always things that can be improved, and that's just how it is as like a creative, a person such as myself. Like there's always areas that I can improve. I learned a lot from talking on this new challenge, and all the love the series has received made me feel both happy and humbled. That's kind of how I feel with the content that I make as well too. Whenever you guys comment or like the videos, really impactful for me. I'd also like to thank my assistant for helping me bring this webtoon to a close. That includes Mr. Park, who helped me all by himself during Season 1, and Mr. Lee, who did the same for Season 2, with the exception of a few months. Thank you both for helping me achieve my vision for this series. Such a great outcome would have been impossible without your passion and help. I'd like to thank Mr. Lee again for participating and blah, 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 helping me with each chapter till the end to do the coloring as well. So it's like I also have to have other people that are helping me on my journey, which I've started to do that on another channel of mine. I just like the whole aspect of him like thanking everybody with it, and he's like, I'll try even harder from here on out, which that's what I'm trying to do my best with, like making these videos, putting a little bit more thought and effort and kind of sharing things that maybe you guys wouldn't hear anywhere else, which I think is incredibly helpful. And it's like, this is the part that I really want to share. Life is an endless quest where you must level up constantly, sometimes alone, sometimes with company. Therefore, I'd like to wish luck to all my readers on the remaining journey. Thank you for showing so lovely and so much love. Until next time. I've been on a journey to level myself up for years because I thought I had to do it on my own. I've started to realize that like I don't have to do it on my own. I can use my shadows, my past experiences, my past like battles that I've won to help them, to have them help me defeat more enemies. Because I was realizing like Jin Wu, he started out as like an E rank and he leveled all the way up to like an S rank and even higher basically. And I always thought it's just like, well, it kind of stops to become exciting the higher you get. But then it's like, I wrote this down because it gets good the stronger you get at the opportunity, as much as it gets good the stronger you get because the opportunities are much more impactful. So like the stronger you get, the higher you climb up on the ladder, the more validity and power that your words will have, or your strength can muster and save more people, which I never really looked at it from that perspective. I always thought that like if I had used my shadows, if I had used these past experiences, if I had used these things that define me, then it would be hindering myself from my growth, and it would make other people feel inferior to me and make them not want to listen to what I have to say, which I mean, that's still probably the case in some way, shape, or form, but at the same time, it's also inspiring other people. Like Jin Wu, he had his one vice admiral person that was like still looking up to him and wanting to help him out no matter what, regardless of how strong Jin Wu was. And he knew that he would never be able to amount to Jin Wu's strength, but he was still wanting to help him out because he saw the potential and the strength that Jin Wu had to be able to save all these other people. And then all of his shadow creatures, enemies, servants, shadow servants, like they would call him king. They look up to him like they were his loyal servants because he had beaten them. He had overcome their ability, and he asked them to arise and fight by his side. And they did. They did this with unwavering like gratitude and happiness and joy because they were able to live their life again. They were able to be in the present once more when they weren't able to do that. Whereas like if he wouldn't have integrated those shadows into his own psyche, into his own being, into his own army, then he wouldn't have been able to fight the enemies that he did, like the enemy of the dragons, or when he went to the Ant Island. Like he wouldn't have been able to beat those enemies if he wouldn't have been able to use his shadows, even though there was a time when he still has to fight himself, which that's why it's like, I also wrote down this. So it's just like, each of us has a role to play, so play it correctly. People will reach me. People will reach out to me when they need me. When I do a good job, I can enjoy my life. And it's just like having a team, having shadow soldiers underneath us that work with us, type of thing, that help us. That like they're doing their skill set and I'm doing my skill set, is the best way to grow, because with this, they're able to know what they have to do, and I'm able to know what I have to do. And when I am called and I need to strengthen out my strengths, then I will also step in and I'll do what's required to make sure that it happens. It's just I've come to realize, especially after reading Solo Leveling, which who would have thought that like a webtoon would have brought me this realization. But it's like having the strength to hire other people and delegate one's resources is what true leadership is what true strength is. Without me being able to say dedicate my shadows or my soldiers to go do the thing that they would do, I wouldn't be able to defeat the enemies that I want to defeat, or the enemies that stand in my way. Like the only way to truly become stronger is by allowing other people to work by my side and having them help me out, and still using my strengths when it's required to be like, okay, so this is why he's the boss. This is why other people follow him. This is why he does that. And that's where I think there's a disconnect sometimes in certain organizations or roles or companies or whatever it may be, is like we don't see, like we just see the person as they are. And I wrote about this on my Instagram page as well too. All we do is see where they're at. We don't see where they have been. So it's like we can see like a manager or something like that. Maybe you don't have respect for your boss or something like that, which if you don't, like, I mean, you have every right to go somewhere else if you really want to. I just look at it as like, if I haven't seen the person done it myself, then how do I know that like they're capable of doing these things? Like I want to see them behind the phones, or I want to see them fighting the battle. I want to see and have that proof that's like, okay, I can follow this guy because I know that he's doing the thing that like he's having me do, and he's done it beforehand. Obviously, we can't do everything. Like we can't defeat or do like every task at hand, because there's going to be certain tasks that other people excel at better than like we do. But at least we can try. We can at least attempt to be in that same place, or when we do truly need to step up, we step up. Because there's a movie on Netflix as well too called Man of Wrath, and he does that. Like he's the boss, he has other people working for him, but when he truly has to get his hands dirty because he has a task that he wants to handle, he doesn't have his, I don't want to say minions, but he doesn't have his employees take over for him. He goes off and does it the same thing, or does it on his own. Jin Wu does the same thing, where like when he wants to truly defeat an enemy and he knows that he has to be the one that defeats the enemy, he doesn't have his soldiers do it for him. He goes off and does it for himself because he's the strongest one. But if he would never have integrated his shadow, then he wouldn't have had the ability to do this. It's the same thing with like the Summertime Render. Like their shadows were more of like kind of a hindrance to them because they were trying to overtake the world, which is interesting, where it's just like maybe our shadows are more us than we are them. In a way, like because our shadows are our subconscious thoughts and things and feelings, which maybe you didn't know that, maybe you did. If you did, cool. If not, no worries. But I just look at it in terms of like we have to be able to grow and allow our shadows to do what they need to do and ingest those shadows. Like I was saying in meditation the other night, just like completely was like, wow, oh my goodness. And like I was asking for help, and like I had wept in ways that I had never wept before. I was like, okay, this is interesting. Like I was just asking for help, and I guess that's where the solo leveling came in, and I was able to read his chapters and be like, okay, so I need to integrate these shadows. I need to use these skills, because other people, they aren't going to be mad. They aren't going to be upset. Like sure, there probably are. Like Jin Wu, he got lots of hate comments on how he wanted to go into gates by himself and how he wanted to do all these things that nobody else had ever done before. There's always going to be people that are envious. There's always going to be people that are hating, but like his mission was so focus driven that he wanted to protect his mom and his sister, that nothing else stood in his way. Like he didn't get distracted by women, even though he like wanted to get distracted by women. He's like, no, I'll think about that later. And then when the time was right, he ended up finally calling her because she ended up confessing his feelings to him, which I absolutely love that. And I'm waiting for my girl to do that to me eventually. I don't know when, but I have to become or do the things that I do right now and just act as I do. And then she'll come along kind of like Miss Chia, CHA, I think, did with Jin Wu. Like she saw his strength. He wasn't trying to impress her. He was just being him, and then she fell in love with him. And I think that's the whole concept, and maybe I'll make another video on that here as well. So if you want to see that, subscribe or leave a comment down below. Happy to make that. I just look at it in terms of, and sorry about all the sniffing and snuffling. Got some allergies going on right now. Yeah, it's interesting. It's very, very cool seeing how, like, once we integrate our shadows and we have a team and we build that team up, it becomes a whole lot easier. Because there was a part even in solo leveling too where Jin Wu was having a company or complete the 100 levels in the demon castle or the demon world, and he set up a team of 6 different people, and then those 6 different generals or shadows that he had, they all had teams under him, and he was the one in the center. And I like that as well, too, where it's just like, here's me, and then I have 6 other people on the outside doing what they need to do, and then they have teams under them. And some of you might be thinking, well, that's a pyramid scheme, because I used to think that as well, too. But it's like, no, that's just how leadership works, dude. Like, you have somebody up at the top, and then you have people beneath him, and then you have people beneath those people, and then you have people beneath those people. It's like, if you imagine it this way, at least this is how I'm starting to see it. It's like, if I had me up at the top, which that's where I am, and that's where I want you to be, that you're up at the top. And if you have 100 people underneath you, having every single person come to you is going to be a lot. Whereas if you have like 5 people underneath you, and then you have each of those 5 people, each have 20 people underneath them, now you, instead of having 100 people report directly to you, the 20 people report to that one person, and then that one person relays the information from those 20 people. So now you're only having 5, 10, 15, 20 people reach out to you compared to the 100 people, which is a lot easier to talk to 20 people compared to it is to talking to like 100 people. And you could even break that 5 people down even more and just have like 3 people. So it's just you, your left hand, your right hand, and your center all talking to you in a way that helps you become stronger. Like, this is just something that I understand now with business that I didn't understand beforehand, and I want to relay that information to you in case you're looking at like starting a business or something like that. Plus, it just kind of helps me get my own thoughts out in a different way than I originally would. But yeah, dude, like, it's about delegation. It's about trusting the people that are beneath you, not even beneath you, that are working with you to do the tasks that they have been hired to do. It's not about forcing or making other people do other things. It's just about understanding that everybody has their own role. And this is something that I didn't understand at first, but it's like everybody has their own role. You play the role that you are meant to play, and you let others play the role that they're meant to play. There's even a part too, like Jin Wu, he had a business meeting, or some guy was like wanting to work with him, and he's like, oh, I'm not about the business side. My partner does the business stuff. And then he just lets his partner do the business stuff. He doesn't worry if his partner is going to do it the right way. He trusts him fully because Jin Wu knows like he does what he has to do. And he understands that his business partner has already proven himself time and time again to understand that he is going to be a success in whatever he does do and whatever decision that he makes. Because Jin Wu, he's just going to keep doing what he does, just as I'm going to keep doing what I do. And I hope you keep doing what you do. Cool. Hope you guys liked this video. If you did, sub to the channel, and I'll chat with you in the next one, whenever that is. See you soon.